वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथं वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपकान्त श्रीराधा कान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्रीराधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिय। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we are continuing from the fourth canto. Today the discussion is on the 28th chapter, where Narad Muni is telling King Prachinibhari the allegorical story of Puranjan. So in the last two chapters we have seen, or last three chapters we have seen the description of Puranjan, who he represents, how he gets entangled in material intelligence, and then he is enjoying. But then in the last chapter we saw how, due to inevitable time, the old age, the death, that is now taking charge. So then the next chapter is entitled How Puranjan Becomes a Woman in the Next Life. So that is what we are going to discuss today. So first verse goes something like this. Narada uvacha Sainika bhaya namno ye barhisman prajvara kala kanyabhyam vechirur avanim imam. So it's mentioned that how Narad Muni is continuing his description to King Prachinibhari. So in the last chapter we saw how Bhaya, Kalakanya, so they are together, they are attacking. So then afterwards the king of Yamanas, whose name is fear itself, as well as Prajvara, the fever, and Kalakanya, old age, and his soldiers began to travel all over the world. So they are in the mood to now inflict the living entity with the suffering which comes due to the passing of time, advancement of age. So that is being discussed in this particular chapter. So Prabhupada mentions in the purport in the end that how, if we look for sense gratification, not knowing that this life is going to end, it will lead to a lot of suffering in the old age. So the criteria is current enjoyment, especially if it's in terms of sense gratification, will lead to suffering in the future. But if one is curtailed or if one is focused on spiritual emancipation, so that may require some kind of austerity, some kind of tapasya, some kind of following rules and regulations. In current setup, will lead to an eternal life of happiness. So both go hand in hand. So this is how Prabhupada translates in this section. So first 27 verses are talking about how Puranjan, he's been enjoying, he has created a whole family, a whole city where his enjoyment is focused, is now meeting death. The first 27 verses. So then these soldiers of this Yavanas, they attacked the city of Puranjan. Although the city was full of sense gratification, but it was attacked. And it was protected by the old serpent, it's mentioned. The serpent is the life air, as we have discussed previously. So that is mentioned here. So Prabhupada is talking about how one should be careful to not indulge in indefinite sense gratification. It makes a person weaker, but work towards spiritual principles or follow spiritual principles in life. That will make one stronger. So whatever one remembers at the time of death, that is what one gets. So that is also Prabhupada is emphasizing here. Then third verse continuing how being attacked, the Kal Kanyapi Bhabuje. So the old age took the Kalakanya, help of dangerous soldiers, attacked Puranjan city and thus rendered them useless for all purpose. So Prabhupada is explaining that how when old age comes in, all the different, because all the inhabitants or of city are basically the different bodily limbs. So as old age takes on, the limbs, the inhabitants.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
हाँ श्रीनिवास बचा रहे हैं.
So one can understand that how when the old age takes into action, the different body limbs become inactive. They become useless. So Prabhupada is talking about importance of brahmacharya and other aspects. And basically training is the essential aspect which one needs to consider, Prabhupada is telling in the purport. Then continuing further, how the Yavanas entered when Kalakanya, daughter of time, attacked the body, the dangerous soldiers of King Yavana entered and they began to give trouble to all the citizens. So that is how it was affecting. So further on, it's mentioned that Puranjan is feeling a lot of pain, being inflicted with so much of trouble, so much of defeat at the hands of this Kalakanya and their soldiers. And it's mentioned that he had a lot of affection for his family, and that placed him in difficulty. So, and the attachment or affection for family in this allegorical story is represented by the attachment for the body and its various bodily desires. So that attachment, when the old age comes to devour this body, actually gives rise to a lot of pain, affecting the mind, affecting the bodily functioning, like that. So that is mentioned here. So Puranjana is feeling a lot of pain. And then text number 6, the whole body is weakened by such an attack. So when King Puranjan was embraced by Kalkanya, he gradually lost all his beauty, and he was too much addicted to sex. He became very poor, lost his opulence, and he was forcefully conquered by Gandharvas and Yavanas. So he did not have any, even though he wanted to remain in this kingdom of body, but he could not continue. Everything was scattered here and there, and he saw that everything is now was scattered. His sons, uh, wife, they became indifferent. They were not able to assist. So Prabhupada is mentioning how when the sons, daughters, the family members, they are represented by the various bodily limbs. So with old age, they also become ineffective in helping the living entity to enjoy, to facilitate the desires of sense gratification. So that is being mentioned here. So he was ridden with a lot of anxiety with the effect of old age. That is mentioned in text number 8. So that all his family members, relatives, followers, servants, everyone else had turned against him. And he was overwhelmed by Kalakanya. The old age is so powerful that it's not allowing him to do anything to reverse the effects of this time factor or this old age. And he became a lot of anxious and lamenting in this frightful condition. Then text number 9 mentions what is the Kalkanya's influence, that the objects of enjoyment became stale, and he became very poor in everything. He did not understand the aim of life. He was very, very affectionate, and he worried about maintaining them. So Prabhupada is mentioning how a person who is entangled in family affairs, he thinks, what will happen when I leave? Who will take care of the my wife? Who will take care of the kingdom, the wealth I have created, like that? So he's inflicted with a lot of desires, but he's not able to understand how it will be accomplished. Then 10th verse, even against his desires, he was forced to leave the city. So he was, it was smashed. The whole city was smashed by Kalakarna. So Prabhupada says, due to long association with a particular type of material body and also due to grace of Kalakanya and her Maya, one becomes overly attached to a material body, although it is abode of pain. So he could see he cannot get out of this kingdom. It's full of pain, but because of so much attachment, he's not willing to give up this kingdom or this body, as is mentioned here. So then Prabhupada, in the end, last paragraph is saying the distinction or difference between a materialistic, a karmi who is about to leave his body, and a devotee. For a devotee, the death is opening the doors for eternal life of service. But for a karmi, he feels so much of hankering or attachment to the body, which leads to a lot of anxiety, worry, and he is afraid to give up this, Prabhupada says, rotten material body. So that is the distinction Prabhupada is making here on the consciousness of the two kinds of personalities. So then Prajvara, he sets fire to the city, that is mentioned in the 11th verse. He is actually younger brother of Bhay. So, and he actually created, Prajvara is referring to the, Jwara is the temperature. So he set fire, and there was high fever. So then when one is about to die, the fever starts increasing till it goes to 107. Then text number 12, what are the effects of the fire? That is mentioned, that it's all, the city is ablaze, and the servant and the king's family members, they were burning in that fire. And King Puranjan became very, very unhappy seeing the whole situation. So that is mentioned of the effects of fire. Then text number 13. So Prabhupada is mentioning that how various bodily limbs are, the senses, the limbs, dhatus are figuratively represented as servants, sons, grandsons. And now being afflicting the whole body, the serpent who is actually protecting, what is his condition is mentioned in text number 13. So he also he's like the superintendent who's trying to protect this body, the life air which is actually breathing into this body. And he became aggrieved to see his own residence set ablaze after being attacked by the Yavanas. So when the temperature is rising, so the life air is feeling being dominated upon and as if being thrown away from this body. So that life air, the the serpent who's trying to protect, is also feeling a similar kind of situation. It's mentioned in text number 13. Then text number 14 mentions the serpent wished to leave, and therefore he had to be forcefully leaved. The serpent within the cavity of a tree wishes to leave when there is forest fire, so the city's police superintendent, the snake, wished to leave the city due to the fire's severe heat. So Prabhupada is mentioning that it's very difficult for snakes when in forest fire to be saved. Other animals can flee, but serpents, being animals who crawl, are generally burnt in fire. So this serpent was also, the life air wanted to leave, and being afflicted with the fire or the jwara. Their loud cries, which are witnessed all throughout. So that is mentioned in text number 15, where being afflicted by Gandharva, Yavanas attack, the whole body is crumbling. So so the life air, the snake is calling out, loudly crying. So Prabhupada is quoting this: Krishna tvadiya padapankaja panjarantam adyevameva satumanasa rajahamsa prana prayana samaye kafavata pitte kantavarodhana vidho smaranam kutaste. From King Kulashekhar's Mukundamala Stotra, that my mind, let me die immediately. Why? Because my mind can actually take shelter in the stem of your lotus. Otherwise, if the final time of death comes, it's very, very difficult. The throat is choked up. It's very difficult to think of you. So, like that, kapha vata pitte becomes imbalanced. So, in this condition, it's very easy. It's relatively easy for me to concentrate on you. So, let me die immediately, like that. Then 16 and 17 mention about the attachments one undergoes. So being wholly attached to the conception of I and mine, Puranjan became miserable at the impeding separation from his wife. So he can see, I have to get separated from my wife, my daughters, sons, what will be my condition. So in this way, he's feeling so much of anxiety, so much attachments are causing him unbearable pain. That is mentioned in text number 16 and 17. Prabhupada is mentioning that people are willing to pay heavy price just so that the doctors can prolong their life for few minutes, and they feel happy that, oh, for few minutes my life has been extended, but it is ultimately going to lead to the inevitable death. So there is struggle for existence, but for a devotee it should be struggle for spiritual existence, not just the common existence which everyone is undergoing. The struggle should be to maintain our spiritual existence, not just in general struggle for existence, which everyone does, even an animal does. But a devotee's mood is struggle for spiritual existence. So in that mood, he should struggle. So then text number 18, anxiety about wife. He was anxiously thinking, when I die, how will my wife be able to maintain? So he's thinking like that, and he's feeling so much of um, pain, Lord, because of attachment. Then 19th, he's remembering the past dealings with his wife, how he was. Uh, they were tying together. She would wait till the husband has finished eating. She will wait unless husband has finished bathing, like that. So even though chastised, she would be willing to remain silent, tolerate his misbehaviors. Prabhupada is giving some instructions on what is a good family life in text number 19 purport. And then 20th, further he's saying that when he was bewildered, she would give me good counsel. She was the mother of so many sons and heroes. And how will they be able to maintain the responsibility of household affairs in his absence? So that is mentioned. And Prabhupada is pointing out that if one has too much attachment or whatever he thinks, at the end, that is the state of consciousness which will give him his next body. So one should be careful how one uses his remembrance consciousness to engage in devotional service. So that is mentioned. Then 21, his anxiety about progeny is mentioned, that how after my death, how will my sons and daughters continue their lives? They were fully dependent on me. I was their sole caretaker. Their position will be like that of passengers on a scattered boat in the midst of ocean. So the boat is scattered in the midst of ocean. How will they survive? So Prabhupada is saying that at the end of life, a living entity worries about his wife, his children. A politician worries about what will happen to his country. But unless one is fully Krishna conscious, he has to accept a body in the next life according to his particular state of consciousness. So one should be careful that ultimately he should have consciousness which connects him to the divine, not just things of this world. He may have to do his duty, but it should lead to connection with divine. Then 22nd, he has unbefitting lamentation. And it was out of Kripanaya Buddhaya, which mentioned Evam Kripanaya Buddhya Shochantam Etat Arhanam. So he was lamenting Shochantam because of Kripanaya Buddhya, because of miserly intelligence. So he should not have lamented for wife, children, but he did. And in the meantime, Yamanraj, whose name was Fear itself, immediately drew near to arrest him. So he was lamenting, not understanding that the time factor, the fear factor, the death factor is just at the doorstep. So Prabhupada is telling how different stages of life are meant for different activities. How one should have brahmacharya, grahastha, vanaprastha, that kind of mood. So then, so then the time has come where Puranjan's death is described, 22nd to 27th verse, where he is being punished, he is being captured, he was bound like an animal, and all the followers became greatly grieved and they lamented. And even though they were lamenting, they were also forced to leave this kingdom. So all the senses, all the life air, everything has to go along, has to leave the body. So that is mentioned. And then 24th verse mentions, as soon as the snake left the city was dismantled and smashed to dust. So the body is smashed. It's like it has no more life air. So it becomes like unusable, it starts decomposing, so it's dismantled and smashed to dust. So the city is now bereft of any life. So it becomes fully um, unlivable. It's actually smashed to dust. So that is mentioned in text number 24. Um, so when this whole incident was happening, text number 25th mentions that how even at this time he could not remember his old friend Sakhayam Suhidam Puraha, his old friend who is his Sakha, who is his Suhidam. So he could not remember, which is the super soul, his friend, his well wisher. So he does not remember that, but he's still only attached to this family. Who will take care? How will they survive without me? So in that mood, he's lamenting. So that is the situation. Prabhupada says the living entity must turn towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrender only to Him. Only then will he be saved from the onslaught of powerful Yavana or Yavanraj. So, unless one takes shelter, even though the Lord is with him as super soul, because he's only attached, he's constantly thinking or having affection, attachment for family, he feels he has no interest to connect with the Lord. So, how can he be saved from the over impeding pain, death, which is uh, going to inflict him? So, that is mentioned here. And then text number 26 mentions that because he had been engaged in killing a lot of animal sacrifices, so these animals took this opportunity to inflict similar kind of pains. With their horns they were piercing his body, and as if cutting, he was feeling the pain as if being cut to pieces by axes. So how what one does, he gets the reaction in a similar mood. So even though he's not getting killed in this process, but the pain experienced is unfathomable. It is as if being meeting death again and again. So that is what Prabhupada is mentioning, and that is his prolonged suffering is being mentioned in text number 27. He is eternally as if suffering all the pangs of material existence and remains in the dark region of material life, bereft of all remembrance for many, many years. So this suffering continues for a very, very long time. Ananta pare tamasi magno nashta smriti sama shashvater anubhuyartim pramada sanga dushita. So how, because of this contaminated association with women, pramada sanga dushita, and being bereft of intelligence, the king suffered all the pangs of material existence for many, many years. Shashwati Samaha, and remained in darkness. So Shashwati Samaha is for a very, very long time, many, many years. And this was due to having over attachment or desire to enjoy in this world. So that is mentioned in text number 27. So Prabhupada is talking about how if one is attached to material enjoyment, he for anadikal he suffers. Anadi karma phale padi bhavarna navajale तारी बारे न देखी उपाय यही विषय हाला हाले दीवा निशी हिया ज्वले मना कबू sukha nahi पाए. So he's quoting from Bhakti Thakur's song that the living entity is engaged in fruitive activities, fallen into ocean of nascence. Tari bare na dekhi upaye. So he cannot see any means to get out of it. Tari bare, taran. Ei vishaya hala hale. So he is like in the ocean of poison. Divi nishi hiya jale. And uh, But actually, that so-called enjoyment is like food that is hot and causes burning. And mana kabu sukha nahi paye. So he's constantly feeling divi day and night, the pain, and his mind mana kabu sukha nahi paye, cannot find any satisfaction. So that is the life of one who is engaged in sense gratification in this world. So then from 28th verse to 32nd verse, how, what is the next destination after suffering the pains of his inevitable karma for many years? He gets a new body as a woman, because he was only attached to women. So Prabhupada is mentioning from body of man he gets a body of woman, and he is actually Princess Vedarbi in his next life. He, that is his next destination or next birth or next identity. So that is mentioned in text number 28. So Prabhupada says the conclusion is that all our activities are taken into consideration before we are awarded another body. So we should be careful what kind of activities we engage in, what kind of attachments, desires we have, and then accordingly the next birth or next destination is determined. So then, so there is a story and of Puranjan, now another story or his next destination. So then there is Vedarbi, and there is a king whose name is Malaya Dhwaja. He is an inhabitant of Pandu country. So he married this princess of Vedarbi. So this Puranjan now as woman, he is married to Malaya Dhwaj. So that is mentioned here. And so what does this allegorically represent? King Maladhaj, the best Dhwaja among the devotees, who are equal to Malaya mountain range and similarly worthy of worship. So Malaya Dhwaj is a great devotee of the Lord. Dhwaja is like the best among the devotees, and he is as great as Malaya mountain. He's like a Mahabhagat. And Upayame, accepting to be a student, Para Puranjaya, he who cuts the doubts arising from other philosophies, Virya Panam, he had great mercy as his power, Virya. So that is described. So this living entity, he gets associated with a Mahabhagat. So he is Puranjan as Vedarbi in this life marries or gets associated with a Mahabhagat, Malayadhaj. The Prabhupada writes, Bhakti arises from the association of devotees by the spontaneous mercy that is shown in Puranjan's next life is Vaidarbhi, where he attained the association of devotee through marriage. The following are the real meanings of the terms, like that. So he, and now as Vaidarbhi, she got attached or associated with a Mahabhagat, Malayadhaj. And from their marriage, they have a daughter who had black eyes. Asita Ikshanam. Asita Ikshanam means a very beautiful daughter who had black eyes. Asita means blue or blackish. Ikshanam means eyes. And they had 7 sons who later became the rulers of different types of lands in Dravida. Sapta Sutan. Sapta Dravida Bhubritaha. So what do they represent? So Asita Ikshanam, so acharyas are mentioning Asita means blackish bluish, or Asita can also mean Krishna. Krishna is also blackish bluish. So Asita Ikshana means who receive the glance of Krishna, or one who has a taste for serving Krishna, which is developed by the mercy of Guru. So because of this living entity's connection with the Mahabhagavat, there is birth of bhakti. there is birth of devotion, which is because of the grace of Guru, Mahabhagat. And the 7 sons represent the 7 limbs of devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Padanam, Dasyam, like that. And but there are 9 we know, Sakya and Atmanivedanam. So it's mentioned that the first 7 they are part of Vedimarg, and the last 2, Sakyam and Atmanivedanam, they are at very high levels of consciousness. So they are related to, will appear spontaneously later, and therefore they are not mentioned here. So they come in spontaneous effect. So that is these progeny of this connection. And their further descendants are mentioned that these 7 sons gave birth to many thousands and thousands of sons. So Acharyas mentioned, what does that mean? The many sons indicate that the processes like Shravanam can each be subdivided into innumerable categories in different ways, like hearing the name, the pastimes or the qualities of the Lord, according to worship of different avatars, according to different rasas. So there are many combinations, permutations. Shravanam also you can do of various devotees or various avatars or various rasas of the name, the pastimes, etc., etc. So therefore, it expands the ways in which a devotee connects with Krishna. It is expanding. So that is mentioned as the various progeny. Then daughters, descendants are mentioned in the next verse, which is text number 32. So she was married to Agastya. Agastya Prag Duhitaram Upayame Dhritavratam Yasyam Dhrida Achyuto Jata Idma Vahatma Jo Munihi. So being married to Agastya, the first born daughter, Ashita Ikshanam, our devotee of Lord Krishna, from her one son was born whose name was Dridachyuta, and from him another son was born whose name was Idmavaha. So what do they represent? So Agastya represents the mind, and when the mind is married to Ishita Ikshana, taste for Krishna. So mind has got taste for Krishna, Asita Ikshanam. From her, Drida Achyuta is born, devoid of attachment. Drida Achyuta was born from Dridha Achyuta Idmavaha born, one who carries firewood for sacrifice or one who is surrendered to Guru. So when mind gets a taste for Krishna, then he gets Drida Ayuto. So where he becomes free for any desire for enjoyment or detached from this world. And when he gets detached, he gets more and more attached to service to Guru, which is Idmavaha, like one who brings firewood for sacrifice, like service to Guru, surrender to Guru. So that is born. So that is how progression in devotee's life take place when he is married or when he associates with a Mahabhaga devotee. So that is how the next life, Vaidharbi, Puranjan is Vaidharbi, is connecting with Krishna. So next few verses from 33 to 42, next 10 verses, mention how Malay Dhwaj along with the queen Vaidharbi retire and they went to the forest as Vanaprastha. So he went to Kulachal for so Kulachal is a place of bhakti to worship Lord with full attention and dividing his kingdom among his sons, it's mentioned. So when his disciples are grown up and able to preach, the spiritual master should retire and sit down in a solitary place to write and execute Nirjan Bhajan. So that is being mentioned by this Malaya Dhwajas going to the forest. So Vaidharbi also followed with the king. Vedarbi followed him like the moonshine follows the moon at night. Yotsneva Rajani Karam, being a devoted wife, she gave up the house, children, enjoyments, and just went with her husband. So that is mentioned. So, what one can infer from this is when the spiritual master retires for Nirjan Bhajan, some of his advanced devotees may follow him and engage in his personal service. Here, Vedarbi is called Madira Ikshana. Madira Ikshana refers to one whose eyes are intoxicated upon seeing the deity. So, Prabhupada says, who will be intoxicated or who can fix his eyes on the deity? One who is actually very advanced devotee. Unless one is an advanced devotee, he cannot fix his eyes on deity in the temple. So, this is referring to the advanced devotees, they may accompany the spiritual master. So then 35 and 36 mention the various austerities which he does, where the Malaya Dhwaj, as the king, he purifies himself externally, internally, through regular baths, through various tapasyas, and he became very, very skinny, bereft of any mood to enjoy. So Prabhupada is about bodily weight in the purport. And then 37, he conquered dualities through austerities, and he conquered the dualities of cold and heat, wind and rain, hunger and thirst, pleasant and unpleasant conditions. He conquered all relativities. So he is not affected by the relativities of this world. That is mentioned in text number 37. And having conquered the dualities, now he is able to focus on the fix his mind on the ultimate truth, that is the supreme Brahman, Krishna. And in that, he became very, very focused. His senses were not disturbed by the dualities of this world. Then text number 39 mentioned he has Rati for Vasudev. Aste sthanur iva iketra divyam varsha shatam stira Vasudeve Bhagavati Nanyan Vedo Udvahan Ratim. So he got this Ratim for Vasudeva unto Lord Krishna. And he did not know or would like anything else to possess. And then in text number 40, it's mentioned that he could see the Lord sitting beside him. He could make a distinction between the Lord, super soul, and the individual soul. So he had this perfect knowledge which was revealed because of his advanced devotion, his unadulterated devotion. So that is his situation. And then text number 41 and 42 mention how he is enlightened, being directly instructed by the Lord. Sakshat Bhagvat Uktena Guruna Harina Nipa Vishuddha Jnana Deepena Spurata Vishwato Mukham. So, being in perfect knowledge, because in his pure state, he was directly instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sakshat Bhagvat Uktena. So, he got Vishuddha Jnana Deepena. He could understand everything from all angles of vision. So, Spurata Vishwato Mukham. He could understand everything. He got enlightened. So, he has this Vishuddha Jnana Deepena. So, he is instructed by the Lord as Chaitya Guru, Guruna Harina, and he understands everything from all angles of vision. He can observe super soul and the soul sitting side by side together without separate interest. And he abstains from material activities. So these three things are the result of enlightenment. So first is mentioned in this verse, the next two are mentioned in the next verse. Pare Brahmani Chatmanam Param Brahma Tathatmani. He could see himself and the super soul sitting side by side. and he was Vikshamano Vihayeksham Asmat Upararamaha. So he retired from all the desires of material activities. So when a devotee is sincere, the Lord, which is sitting in the heart as Chaitya Guru Paramatma, he gives him the instruction or direction how to come to him, how to understand him. So that is being seen. And then in this next section from 43 to 50, this is an important section where there is lot of Prabhupada and purport is giving instructions for a disciple, how he should serve the Guru, how he, in what mood he should take shelter of Guru. So when whether we accepted the austerities with her husband, uh, she remained engaged in his service. So she served, she had a perfect attitude. So whether we represents a disciple, Malaya Dhwaj represents the spiritual master. So the spiritual master is treated by the disciple as good as service to the Supreme Lord. Saksha Dharitvena Samasta Shastra. So that principle is mentioned. So what is the attitude of the disciple or Vaidharbi? And her steadiness in serving the spiritual master. She wore garments. She became very lean because of austerities. She did not arrange her hair, etc., etc. And she was like an unagitated flame. She did not mind all this discomfort in comparison to the the opportunity to render service to the spiritual master. So Prabhupada says, if a disciple remains steady in serving the spiritual master, he need no longer fear falling down into clutches of Maya. So undisturbed, unagitated, because of this steadfast desire to uh, serve the spiritual master. So that is, Prabhupada is giving further inputs on the mood to serve. And then text number 45 is, what is her service? She continued to serve her husband unaware of his passing away. So she, like Maladhwaj, is seated in a steady posture. She could not ascertain that he had passed away from the body, and she was still serving very devotedly, very chastely. And then suddenly she realized when she came to massage the legs of her husband that the body is not warm anymore, and the husband has actually left. And she felt very much pain. She felt like a deer separated from its mate, it's mentioned. Then 47 to 49, the lamentation of Vedarbi after losing the association of her husband is mentioned. She incessantly laments, shedding tears, and she's crying very loudly. So Prabhupada is saying this is how a disciple should feel when at the loss of his spiritual master. So, but he should continue to follow the Vani instructions of the spiritual master. So when the spiritual master is present, he should serve the Vapu. When he is not physically present, he should serve the Vani of the spiritual master. So she is calling out to her husband, please, O my master, get up, O king. You have protected this frightened world surrounded by sea from thieves and false kings. So she is begging or reminding the king of the responsibility. So it is as if Guru, when he comes, he creates a system to a Mahabhagavad devotee to uplift or destroy uh, other philosophies which are not proper, but as soon as the Acharya leaves, there are some discrepancies. The rogues and non devotees take advantage and become unauthorized. So called Swamis, yogis, welfare workers, philanthropists, they become prominent. So that is being figuratively mentioned. Please protect this earth in which you establish bhakti, which is now frightened by those opposing bhakti. So there is some disturbance on leaving of the Acharya. So that is mentioned. Then text number 49, lamenting in the forest, she fell down at the feet of her dead husband and began to cry pitifully and shed tears. So Prabhupada is saying the disciple also becomes similarly bereaved in such uh, a situation at the loss of his spiritual master. And she decides to actually sahamaran, decides to give up. She creates a fire, puts the body of her husband, and she is entering that pyre to unite with the husband. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, a devoted disciple would rather die with the spiritual master than fail to execute his mission. Or to execute the will of the spiritual master, the disciple should be prepared to lay down his life and abandon all personal consideration. So that is the mood of disciple. No personal consideration, is willing to die to establish the instructions of the spiritual master. So that is the mood in which a disciple guru relationship should be executed. So as soon as Vaibhav is about to enter the pyre, suddenly Avigyataha, he comes and starts instructing Vaibhav. तत्र पूर्वतरः कश्चित् सखा ब्राह्मण आत्मवान् शान्तव्यन् वल्गुना साम्ना ताम aha ruditam prabho. So this old friend called Puranjana, he comes in the form of Brahmana, and he began to pacify the queen. Valgu samna tam aha ruditam prabhu. She was crying, but he is trying to pacify. So why did the Lord not appear in his original form as Sri Krishna? Unless one is very highly elevated in loving the Lord, one cannot see him as he is. But when one becomes serious to follow the mission of the spiritual master, his resolution is tantamount to seeing the Supreme Lord. So, in the absence of the spiritual master, how will one get direction? One may get bewildered. How will I know? But Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport that if one is very sincere and serious to follow the instructions of the spiritual master, that is tantamount, as good as seeing the spiritual master or getting instructions from him. So Prabhupada is quoting this Vivasayatmika Buddhi Rekha Kurunandana, how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that one should serve the words of spiritual master. The disciple must stick to whatever the spiritual master orders. Simply by falling on that line, one sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is mentioned here. And then in the next verse, how the Avigyata, he gives instructions. I am your friend. Do you remember that? Don't you remember that in the past you had a very intimate, who are you? Who is the man lying here for whom you are lamenting? Do you recognize me? I am your old friend. You have consulted me many times in the past. So Paramatma as Chaitya Guru is always there, and he comes before one externally as the instructor and initiator spiritual master. So that is the moment at which Chaitya Guru comes, and you have left me and you came in this world. You may not recognize me, that in the past You had a very intimate friend. Unfortunately, you gave up my company and accepted a position as enjoyer in this material world. So, bhauma bhoga rato gataha. So, you had this bhauma bhoga rato, desire to enjoy in this material world, and therefore, hitva mam padam anvichan, you gave up my company. So, the natural position, what Prabhupada is telling in the purport, what we can learn is from this episode is the natural position of living entities to lovingly serve the Lord. When they desire to enjoy themselves like Krishna by misusing their minute independence, they develop a consciousness of duality and come to hate the Lord's service and fall into the material world. So that is the position of the Jiva who does not recognize his intimate connection of service to the Supreme Lord. So he falls down in this world. And then, whether we may say, but I don't remember you, please remind me. So then, the Vigyata, the super soul, he gives a analogy. We are exactly like two swans. We'll live together in same heart, which is just like Manasa Lake. Although we have been living together for many years, we are still far away from our original home. So we live together, but you don't recognize my existence, my friendship. And we are away from our original home for a long, long time. That is the spiritual world. So he's trying to remind the living entity. So you have been wandering in this material world for long, long time. So since you left me, you have become more and more materialistic, and not seeing me, you have been traveling in different forms throughout the world, which was created by some woman. In the name of Prakriti, the some woman is referring to the Prakriti, the external energy, is described here as some woman. So because of that attachment to that Prakriti, you have become entangled more and more and more. And you have been getting more and more bodies, different kinds of bodies getting entangled. So then there's a description of the city allegorically represents the body. So from 56 to 58, how the 5 gardens are the 5 sense objects, the 9 gates are the 9 openings of the body, 1 guard is the life air, 3 apartments are the earth, water, and fire, 6 families are 5 knowledge senses and mind, 5 stores are 5 action senses, and 5 powers of state are 5 gross elements. 1 mistress is intelligence, 1 master is jiva. So, like that, this is how this city with various elements, various constituents, is actually representing the body. So, that is the Vigyata, the friend is giving knowledge. In 56 to 58, you can see that. And then 59, there is entanglement. Why? Because having entered such a city, a body, along with a woman of material desires, you have become absorbed in sense enjoyment, and having hearing about knowledge and without hearing of the knowledge, Ashruta Smriti, you have attained this sinful conditions. Papiyasam. So you have become papiyasim. You have become engaged in sinful reactions. So the Vedarbi or the living entity may say that I have never heard about this knowledge of the self. Please tell me what it is, what should I know about it? So then in 60th verse, Avigyata is telling that how it creates false identities. Actually, you are not the daughter of Vedarba. You are not, nor is this man Maladhaj your husband, nor you are the actual husband of Puranjani. So these are just different identities you have created for yourself. So Prabhupada and Acharyas are pointing out, you are not this daughter of anyone, but you are Chit Shakti Jiva belonging to me. I am your real well-wishing friend. You are not the husband of Puranjani, but the conscious particle covered with ignorance. So that is your position. You are actually my part and parcel. So in that mood, you should understand. So if this is the case, she may ask, why I'm not aware of this? So, Lord, as Avigyata is telling, Paramatma, Maya hi esha maya shrishta. It is due to the effect of Maya, which makes you, which has been created by me, Maya hi esha maya shrishta, and causes you think yourself a woman, a man, a eunuch, but actually we are both pure spiritual entities. Yat pumam sam striyam satim manyase, you think like that, but both of us are hamsayo pashavayor gatim, that we are free from, we are like hamsa, we are free from material contamination. So there is this qualitative oneness, Lord is telling, that we are one on the qualitative level. We are pure spiritual entities. I, the super soul, and you, the individual soul, are not different. Learned persons do not find any qualitative difference between God and between us. But there is quantitative difference. So qualitatively we are one, but quantitatively we are different. That is mentioned in the next verse. Uh, although one sees his reflection in mirror to be oneself, others actually see two bodies. Similarly, there is difference between God and the living entity. So that is mentioned. And what is the way of reviving to your original state, revival to your original state? So that is mentioned in text number 64. When the one swan is instructed by the other, he is situated in his constitutional position. He means he regains his original Krishna consciousness, which was lost because of his material attraction. So when the Jiva, one swan, hears from the other swan, the Paramatma, and gets instruction, being subservient to him, he regains his original consciousness. So that is what is the actual position of the living entity. And in the end, concluding, Narad Muni is saying, Varishman etat adhyatmam parokshena pradarshitam yat paroksha priyo devo Bhagwan Vishwabhavana. So he's saying, Varishman etad adhyatmam. I have told, oh Prachini Bhari, I have told about this adhyatman in a parokshavat. Parokshena pradarshitam. In a paroksh way, I have uh, explained to you or given a visualization to you. Yat paroksha priyo devo. Why? But because Lord is paroksha priyo. He is known indirectly. Bhagwan Vishwabhavana. And he is actually the cause of all causes. Actually, it is an instruction for self-realization. Etad adhyatmam. So, hey king, I have given such elaborate instruction because to help you come to the stage of self-realization, adhyatmam. So, Lord is paroksha priyo. So, he also likes fond of indirect expression. So, through this indirect expression, I have actually given you a glimpse into what will be the position of one who is attached to the affairs of this world related to this body and how he will suffer. So, better you take to bhakti and come out of this. So, Prabhupada says one should be interested, however, in the real purport of the story. Indirect instruction is quickly understandable, understandable for a common man. Factually, the path of Bhakti Yoga is the path of hearing directly about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. But those who are not interested in hearing directly about the activities of the Lord or who cannot understand them can very effectively hear such stories and fables as this one narrated by Narad Muni. And then Prabhupada gives a whole glossary of different terms which have been used uh, in this chapter, representing different, the for a living entity, how he gets entangled, how he can get disentangled. That way, Prabhupada is given a glossary of words. So this is how we conclude this 28th chapter, where there is a lot of instructions and insights on the relationship between guru and disciple, and how a living entity can get disentangled from this material world after many births of accepting that particular existence is all in all. So that is mentioned in this particular chapter. Hare Krishna. Anyone has any comments or? Yes, Prabhu. Purushottam Prasad.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. So in summary, the bottom line is the relationship between the disciple and guru. If it is forgotten, he will be suffering eternally in the material universe. Whereas Jiva understand material attraction is temporary and it is not that is not the purpose of life. So serving the guru is the ultimate goal of life. You understand? Then the Jivatma will be relieved from all the suffering. Is that the essence of this chapter?
Yeah, serving Guru and through him, Krishna.
So because when we explain about these things to common man, first question say, everything is Maya, your father and mother, if they thought that, how you would have born? This common question we face with a common man, A woman is a form of Maya, illusionary energy. And how you are born from your parents. So when raise these questions, it's difficult to convince them, or because they are not spiritually having a basic knowledge about what is the importance of self-realization. So in such a scenario, how we have to deal with the question, Prabhu?
Actually, if you carefully read the purports in this particular chapter, Prabhupada makes it very clear. It is if the desire is to just enjoy in this world. In this way, if you see things, and this is how the relations are based, especially the relation between a man and a woman, so then it is source of Maya. But then Prabhupada gives purports where he's mentioning that actually if the focus is to connect with Krishna, so then it can be a very fruitful relationship, in which, like here, the example of Malay Dhwaj and Vaidarbhi, where Malay Dhwaj, being a pure devotee, actually assist, and by Vaidarbhi assisting Malay Dhwaj, both are uplifted. So it's not Maya, like when we say woman is Maya, like what the term you are using, it is with the thought that I will enjoy. This is source of my enjoyment. So that thought process is being spoken about, or is being said. It's illusory. But if the whole aspect is to connect with Krishna, then it's not Maya, it's not illusory. So when Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, he was in Varanasi. His father was Tapan Mishra. So after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came back after visiting Vrindavan, he came back to Jagannath Puri, and he had visited Varanasi on the way, and Raghunath Bhatt Goswami was really inspired. So he came to Jagannath Puri to meet Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya very much showed his mercy on Raghunath Bhatt Goswami. But then he told that do not marry, but go and serve your parents. They are both great devotees of the Lord. Until the time they are there, you serve them. And when they are no longer there, then you can come back. So he serves them, and then again he comes back to Jagannath, stays again for 8 months. And again he gets association of Lord Chaitanya. And then Lord Chaitanya tells him, you go to Vrindavan and you serve with under Roop and Sanatan. So there are various instances in our literature where it is about what the focus is on, not the person per se, but on the consciousness with which we get attached to that person or with that personality. So that is being addressed. Is that, you have any further discussion on this, Prabhu?
Prabhu, yeah, Prabhu, thank you. Because it was muted, I was unable to answer it. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Yeah, because the Lord doesn't see whether you're brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi. The devotion and dedication and sincerity, that is the priority. In what body and what varna or ashrama we are, that is not the primary criteria for performing bhakti. So that is the case why this, and if you see whole Bhagavatam is the entire grahastha life, many of them, brahmacharis are hardly, like Narada Muni or Kumara, Sukadeva Goswami, only few of them. The rest of all the devotees, great Mahajanas, everybody is grahastha. So the present generation and the past generation, for both of them, we have to make like this difficult subject in a palatable manner, so they will accept. Because the moment you say, oh, is ISKCON devotee or something, oh, everybody becomes sannyasi. That kind of process is there. So kind of awareness we create. No, the world is moved by grahasthas, and grahasthas is the source of running the entire society, supporting brahmachari and vanaprastha and sannyasi. Then we can make more number of devotees into the mission, as well as spread the Sankirtana movement as well. So that was the intention to ask this question, Prabhu. Sorry. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Actually, as we have discussed, and the whole purpose of Bhakti Vaibhav course is to understand Bhakti is beyond these designations we may have as Varnashram designations or whatever, our material designations. It is free of that. It is our ability to connect with Krishna in a suitable way in whatever environment suits us. And if we have proper respect for each other, that is very fruitful. So it's not just mere a certain ashram or a position makes one superior or inferior. It is actually the consciousness in which we are able to respect the Lord. So if we get proud of having certain qualification or certain designation, that is actually to our detrimental to our bhakti. But if we have a certain position and we are humbled by it, that is actually helpful for our progress in bhakti. So more important is the barometer or criteria is what is helping us take more shelter of the Lord, become more Krishna conscious. So that should be considered. And if you see Prabhupada also, when Prabhupada would deal with people, he would, rather than answer the content of the question, he will answer the intent of the question. If you see many places, Prabhupada would deal with similar questions in a different way, because he would see the intent of the person who's asking, and he will try to address the intent. If it's in a challenging mood, Prabhupada will reply in a challenging mood rather than addressing the question. But if it's in a submissive mood, then he will try to give an understanding in that way. So it is to be understood properly that and if you go through, actually, if you go through this whole Puranjan episode, Prabhupada gives so many instructions. I like in the purports, both for how brahmacharya ashram is fruitful for bhakti, and how grahastha ashram is also advantageous for bhakti. So it's, so one may say, which is more important? Actually, both are equally good to help us progress, transform. So it's not that one is better than the other. And as you rightly mentioned, maximum people are situated in grahastha ashram. So that is how the movement will spread. So that is also true. Okay. Anyone else? I had, like, there were 2 hands raised, but yes, Prabhu, Jai Jagannath.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danut Pranam. Just wanted to extend this question because as we go on progressing in bhakti, we know that the detachment will grow. So knowledge and detachment will grow. So how to balance this detachment versus responsibility? Because that we need to see, because once the detachment will grow, then people think that, okay, go away from the family, leaving the family and these things. Then there is certain responsibilities factor and other things, because we are living in a society. So though that is material and physical bodily requirement, but still how to balance it? So that's my first question. And then second question is, sometimes Chaita Guru, we have a Chaita Guru as you have mentioned, and so Chaita Guru, voice of Chaita Guru and voice of Diksha Guru, sometimes it varies. Then Chaita Guru means you know yourself better. So how to balance it? Because everywhere in the scripture, Prabhupada mentioned that your Diksha Guru's word is final and you have to go as for that only, without taking care of independence or your true nature and other things. So then these are the 2 very basic questions. Maybe we can have a discussion around this, how to take care of these 2 things.
Okay. One aspect is about detachment you are mentioning. So detachment is not, the one thing I read and was discussing was, detachment is not about having no emotions, becoming stone-hearted, but it's about having no emotional dependence. So that has to be correctly understood, that once Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had one person come to him asking, please give me sannyas. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur asked, why should I give you sannyas? So he said that I did not cry when my wife died. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, if you did not cry even for your wife, how will you cry for the deliverance of the whole world? So this is not a qualification for getting sannyas. So it's not that one should have no emotions or one should become stone-hearted. It's more about having no emotional dependence on treading the right path or doing your responsibility but not become emotionally handicapped because of them, because of attachment, not able to see what is good for others, what is good for myself, that aspect. Anyone else wants to add anything to this? Is that Jai Jagannath Prabhu, is that okay? Or
I think it's closer, but still we may need little more discussion sometimes, because there are many examples who have left the family. You see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mirabai, there are many. So we read that we have to leave everything and go for in the path of Bhakti.
no, but there are other examples. Prabhu, there are others. Shivananda Sen, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu blessed Shivananda Sen, all their three sons.
Yeah,
so it's
right.
not just sannyasis. It's maximum. There are most of the associates of Mahaprabhu in Chaitanya Leela. They are in Grahastha Ashram. But when Shivananda Sen, when he was dealt so rudely, apparently, by Nityananda Prabhu, what was his reaction? He was like, his wife was crying, oh, Nityananda Prabhu cursed our three sons to die. But then Shivananda Sen was cursing the wife, that why are you are illiterate woman, you are like, you don't know that even if for the pain or displeasure we have caused, if they die, that's okay. So he is doing his responsibility, but he has full dedication to Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. So it's not just the ashram per se, the responsibility, it's the consciousness. So we see that there are so many devotees who are in that position. So it's not that one has to leave. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even after taking sannyas, he was concerned for his mother. He was Lord himself, so he could go and fulfill the desires by eating the bhoga cooked by Sachi Mata. But then he also sent Jagdanand Pandit to give information. Then the devotees sent Kal Krishna Das. So different ways in which she was also taken care. So it's not that there are no emotions involved, but sometimes to do certain aspect, then one has to take certain decisions. So in that way, it has to be understood in a proper spirit.
Right, Prabhu. We can come to the next question, or anybody have any opinion?
Ramacharya Prabhu, you are saying something on this aspect? You have raised your hand.
Sorry, I was not able to unmute myself. Yeah, I can do now. So, Prabhu, just wanted to a little bit share my understanding that detachment is not in a unhealthy connotation. Detachment means basically attachment to Krishna. When we detach, we are detaching from the affairs of the material world and developing a strong attachment to devotional service. And the perfect example is our Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Bhakti Vinod Thakur has a Grihastha life, but he was fully attached, and everything that he did for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the point that I'm trying to make is that detachment is not unhealthy as we progress in Krishna consciousness, but it's higher emotion, as you said. You mentioned the emotion word multiple times. So it's higher emotion to serve Lord, and also, detachment also is maybe in one sense we are detaching from our personal affairs, but at the same time, we are attaching for the paramartha. Now we are not kind of just keeping ourselves attached to our particular day-to-day activity. Rather, our vision is developing, and we are, seeing how we can serve the other, living being. So I personally see that, this detachment is definitely in a very healthy connotation, in a healthy context, and it's, really basically for better of our devotional life. And I look at Bhakti Vinod Thakur Maharaj and so many other grihastha that are mentioned in our Shastra. There was also this Adhut Brahman, that the story comes, and so many other, examples are there in Shastra.
Okay, thank you. To the second question, can you just repeat again?
The second question was there like Chaita Guru and your Diksha Guru. And so as we often mention, and you have mentioned also, Chaita Guru also give you some instruction. The voice come from inside. And so how to deal with that? Sometimes the voice is different in different directions. So, which also sometimes impact the independence aspect, because how to deal with, we are dealing with, we are moving in this century, and so the young generation, they look at things little more open-minded and scientific manner. So that Chaita Guru is thing which is your inner voice, and your Diksha Guru also instructing something. So how to deal with? So sometimes may some conflict happen in that case. So
what my understanding to this is, Prabhu, that for a guru-disciple relationship to be healthy, there is always guru and disciple. So disciple can express his desire, and there can be a discussion on it.
yeah,
But
that's right.
But ultimately, after the discussion also, if guru gives certain instruction, then disciple should follow it. So healthy is, there can be discussion, or there can be a healthy discussion on it, not as a matter of grudge or as a matter of outdoing the opinion of another, not in that mood, but in the mood of healthy discussion, what is the appropriate. But ultimately, the instruction of spiritual master is lifeline, like Prabhupada says, Vyavasayatmika buddhire keha kurunandana. Prabhupada quotes again and again the Vishnachakra Thakur's comment on that aspect. And the Chaitya Guru aspect, Prabhupada is clearly in this particular episode is pointing, when the spiritual master's physical presence is left, how will the disciple know what I should do? He may get disturbed. He does not have personal guidance. So there Prabhupada clearly writes that if the disciple is very sincere, eager, wholehearted in his attempt to serve the instructions of the Guru, so then Chaitya Guru will actually give him guidance in the right direction. So until a person is fully purified, he doesn't know what is the voice of Chaitya Guru and what is the voice of one's own samskaras or mind. He cannot distinguish, because both voices are there. So at what point which voice is taking shape, he cannot distinguish it. For a pure devotee or for an advanced devotee, it is because the Lord within the connection is so strong, so it is more or less the voice of Chaitya Guru. But for a sadhaka, it's difficult to judge. So my understanding of what I have heard and seen till now is and read is in this understanding. So there can be a healthy discussion, but then one will make more progress by actually following the instructions of spiritual master.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare.
I think we'll end here then. Thank you very much for your patient discussion and hearing and contribution to this Shrimad Bhagavatam topic. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Granthra Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Panchakalpadurubhasya kripa sindhubeva cha patitanam pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.